Adam Schefter of ESPN says multiple teams have inquired about Jauan Jennings. I'm going to call bullshit on that, but let's just play the game out anyway. Who wants Jauan, and what could the 49ers get for him? We'll talk about it all on today's Gold Standard Podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the original Gold Standard Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, part of the Pro Football Insiders. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. It's Wednesday. Levin Black is here. Levin, I hope you're in a better mood than you were last week.
I would not get your hopes up. I'm kind of in a dark and gloomy state at all times right now.
Okay. Well, how could you be? Look, we are so close to the start of the regular season. I actually spent time yesterday looking back at like old YouTube and or TikTok videos that I made, like talking about the off season. You know, it was dark when all those guys were leaving, and it was like you were just in the middle of this off season. Now we're on the other end. Training camp is starting up in a week, baby.
I mean, if you want full honesty, it's because with stuff going on in my personal life right now, football is not at the top spot like it usually would be this time of year.
Well, of course, obviously we all understand.
That's the truth. Yeah, like, yes, if I just look at the 49ers, it's a lot more shiny and bright out than it was this time last year. But I'm a human being, and there's football is not at the top of the list right now in terms of things.
Yes, understandable. But we're trying to keep the focus on football here.
I know. It's not that I'm not reading, and it's not that I'm not paying attention. It's just when it comes to my demeanor, it's not what's controlling my demeanor right now.
If you were reading yesterday, you would have seen Jauan Jennings news, because we can't have nice things, Levin. We can't have a drama-free offseason. Jauan Jennings wants the 49ers to either pay him or trade him. I've talked about this a little bit, and I haven't seen you anywhere talking about this, so I'll give you the floor. Just what was your reaction when you saw the news, and what do you think the 49ers will do?
Well, you haven't seen me talking about it because I don't exist anywhere anymore except for this. So for the people that like hearing my thoughts, this is the one and only place you will get them. So tune in. But in terms of this, when I saw this, it was mostly a shoulder shrug because I completely understand why Jauan Jennings would, but I also think this is one of those scenarios where the team goes, good for you. You can play on your current contract. We're not negotiating. Jennings is not somebody that I'm going to sign again unless he wants to sign for something like he just did, the 2-year, what was it, $17 million. If he wants to re-up, sure. But he probably wants more. He just had what's probably going to end up being a career year because there's so many injuries around him. He got a lot more targets than he usually would. So I completely understand why he wants to maximize his value now. But it's just a scenario where the team has zero reason to do that. This is not a guy you want to pay big money, and they just paid Ayuk big money, so they can't really do it anyways. And at the same time, he's too good of a player for you to go and trade, especially with all the injuries and the unknown of Ayuk and all those things. So it's one of those scenarios where it's just kind of a shoulder shrug. It's like I don't fault anybody on either side of this, but it is you're going to play on your current contract or you can retire. That's your choice.
Retire. I don't think we're going to get a Jauan Jennings retirement. A couple of things. You know, Jason Aponte and Steph were obviously talking about this yesterday, and I thought that they brought up a really smart point that I didn't think to bring up when I initially heard it, which was, look, the Jauan Jennings that we saw last year got that opportunity because everybody was hurt. This year, that opportunity will exist early on, but then if everything goes according to plan, and I understand all the caveats that come with that, but, you know, the plan right now for Jauan Jennings is not to be wide receiver 1, is not to be wide receiver 2, is to maybe be wide receiver 3, maybe. Although you could argue wide receiver 4 because Demarcus Robinson is there too. Can you really pay a guy more than they're paying him now to be wide receiver 4? You know, I think that we haven't looked beyond the first 3 weeks of the season, right? The first 3 or 4 weeks. But when we look beyond that, you can't really pay more than $7.5 million to wide receiver 4 on your team.
You just can't. You can't pay him. He's somebody, like I said, if he wants to re-up and secure his future and get maybe I would go up to like another 2-year, $20 million deal or a 3-year, $30 million deal that doesn't have anything guaranteed past one additional year. Fine, because then that would allow the Niners to save a little bit of money on the cap this year. And it would secure the future for Jauan Jennings a little bit. But I just don't see a scenario where Jennings is going to want to sign for that. And I don't see a scenario where the Niners can sign for anything extra. So it truly is a situation of play out your current deal or retire. Because if he doesn't play out his current deal, then he has no choice to retire because they changed the rules to where you can't just sit out the entire year and then get your free agency. You have to play, I think, a minimum of 6 games to be able to get that. And the report that I saw said that he will not hold out of training camp if he doesn't get a new deal. So it's like, okay, I get it. You probably do deserve to get paid. But with the current situation of where we're at, having just drafted a first-round wide receiver and having a highly paid other wide receiver, you're not getting another contract.
And the other part of this, and which I'm calling BS on, Adam Schefter said multiple teams have inquired about Jauan Jennings.
Why do you call BS on that?
Who is breaking down the 49ers door to give up?
See, you're going to someplace that's not what he said. He said teams have inquired. We know what inquired means. I would bet that there probably are upwards of 10 teams that have called and said, hey, what is the price on Jennings? Because if they say a 7th round pick, you got to inquire because you don't know.
You think there are teams out there, 10 teams out there, a third of the league is going to give up draft pick compensation and give Jauan Jennings a new contract? Jauan Jennings? Like, I know that we like Jauan Jennings. I like him too. But we got to be realistic about what he is. He's a scheme-dependent possession receiver, okay? His best season of his life was 975 yards, which, breaking news, is not a lot in 2025, okay? Like, he's not as good as 49ers fans think he is. He's a good player, but he's not a transcendent player. He's not making or breaking anybody's wide receiver room this year, including the 49ers, by the way. I don't know that a third of the league is saying we'll give up draft picks and then pay Jauan Jennings $10 million a year.
I think those teams want to inquire. I think a lot of teams would obviously be willing to trade a draft pick for him, upwards of, I would say, like a 4th round pick, maybe for some teams, depending on then not paying him. But if paying him a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick, I think there's quite a few teams that would be interested in at least trading a draft pick for him. And if you are at the spot of, well, we would trade a draft pick for him, then you make the call just to see what his price is because you can't negotiate with him without team permission. And that would count you as inquiring. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you are a team that says, yeah, we would trade a draft pick for Jennings, then you make the call and you become part of the inquiry. I would imagine a third of the league would trade some draft compensation for Jennings, even if it's only a 7th round pick. And if you're at that point, you are making the call and becoming an inquiring team.
Okay. You're right. You're right. Inquiring.
That's what I'm saying. Like, inquiring does not mean that they are beating down the door. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're taking it to a point that's not what it's saying.
But I don't even think that many teams. When, to be fair, Schefter didn't say a third of the league. You said that, but Schefter didn't. So I want to be fair to Adam Schefter. I don't think that there are a lot of teams out there that are going to want to give up a draft pick and pay Jauan Jennings a lot of money. Now, maybe Miami will, because a guy like Mike McDaniel, right, has ties to the 49ers. So he may like him more than the rest of the league. Pittsburgh seems to want every wide receiver we have on the roster. So maybe the Steelers would be willing to do it. But I just can't see it, man. Like, why? Why would you?
I don't think there's a lot of teams that are willing to do both of those things, pay him and trade for him. But I do think there are a lot of teams willing to trade for him, and thus they're going to inquire. I would say that one of the most likely spots for him would be Washington, because the Adam Peters connection, the fact that he is a really good safety blanket for a young quarterback, and they have the unknown of McLaurin. If they have come to the decision that we cannot come to an agreement with Terry McLaurin and we're going to have to move on from him after this season, then they could go get a cheap replacement. I mean, he's not Terry McLaurin, but he's right. But he's something there that's going to help them this year and be around for when they get rid of McLaurin, because they don't know what they're going to be able to replace him with, and they might be going to the draft to replace him. So Washington would make a lot of sense in that scenario, and I think Washington would be willing and able, because they clearly have a very cheap franchise quarterback, to pay Jennings $10 million a year on, say, a three-year deal. So I think they would make a lot of sense just because of the connection in the situation.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the salary too, because that I think is part of it. And I think that some people have said, like, well, if you get rid of Jauan Jennings, what are you going to do? I don't think you necessarily need to go get someone to replace Jauan Jennings. I think the Jauan Jennings replacement's already on the roster. That's what I think DeMarcus Robinson's here to do. You know, he's not just under contract for this year. He's under contract for next year too. So I think the Niners are looking at this like, hey, it'd be great to, have both of them this year, especially because the suspension with DeMarcus Robinson, we know that's all well and good. But I think their plan was you let Jauan walk after the year. You have DeMarcus Robinson, a veteran player, can replace the production that Jauan Jennings gave you. And then hopefully by that time, one of the 4 wide receivers you've drafted in the last 2 years has emerged, whether that's Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, Jordan Watkins, who they just took. Junior Bergen doesn't really count because he's not expected to be a wide receiver. But I think that was the plan for the 49ers. And if that happens, you do it a hell of a lot cheaper than you would for Jauan Jennings. If you're watching on the stream right now, you can see the salaries for this year. Jauan's going to make $7.5 million this year. That is more than DeMarcus Robinson, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, and Jordan Watkins combined. All right. So I think the Niners are betting, yeah, can we have another receiver put up 975 yards for a third of the money? Yeah, I think we can. And I think that is a safe assumption by the 49ers.
I would not go that far. I think if you get rid of Jennings and you go into the season with DeMarcus Robinson and Ricky Pearsall as your starter, a mid-round pick last year who didn't do anything, and a mid-round pick to late-round pick this year that so far has had good reviews, but you haven't even hit training camp yet, you're in for a world of hurt. Like, that's a joke of a wide receiver core. You're banking on Ayuk being back. If they go into the season banking on Ayuk going back, that is a mistake. Ayuk should be, boy, we really hope he comes back, but if not, we're okay. If you get rid of Jennings, that's not what the situation is. DeMarcus Robinson is not Jauan Jennings. Sorry. He's just not.
Jauan Jennings.
Jauan Jennings. I knew you were going to correct that. I said it, and I was like, he's going to correct that. But he's not DeMarcus Robinson. DeMarcus Robinson is not the receiver Jennings is. DeMarcus Robinson has had flashes in his career. He is not the receiver that Jennings is. There's a reason why they got him for $2.1 million this year. On top of that, yes, I know it's not the most important thing for wide receivers. DeMarcus Robinson is not the blocker Jennings is. Jennings does make a difference in the run game.
Yeah, he's a good blocker, but I don't pay my wide receivers for blocking. I pay them for wide receiving. And I disagree. I don't think that DeMarcus Robinson is so much worse than Jauan Jennings. Look at Jauan Jennings' career numbers, which are on the screen now. Before last year, he was what? 200 yards a year, 400 yards a year. I mean, let's just call a spade here. And boy, did I bring the visual aids today on the show. This is our third graphic. Jauan Jennings is a little bit nicer Kendrick Bourne. That's what he is. You can look at the career numbers. They're on the screen right now if you're watching the stream. Jennings played 60 games with the Niners. Kendrick Bourne played 58. Jennings has had 155 catches. Kendrick Bourne had 218. Jennings has a little over 1,900 yards. Kendrick Bourne had a little over 1,700. And Bourne actually had more touchdowns than Jauan Jennings, 22-13. He's not irreplaceable. It's completely conceivable that DeMarcus Robinson can replace Jauan Jennings from a receiving perspective. I'll give you the blocking. That's fine. From a receiving perspective, I think we can find someone to do what he did.
Jennings is really easy to replace in the off season. It's too late to replace him now. DeMarcus Robinson is not Jauan Jennings. He's not.
I think he is.
He's not.
How do you know? Based on what? Jauan Jennings 1 year last year where he had 975 yards?
Because of who DeMarcus Robinson is. You don't even have to look at Jennings. DeMarcus Robinson is not that good of a receiver. That's why they got him for less than $5 million over 2 years.
DeMarcus Robinson's numbers in his career are exactly what Jauan Jennings were before last year.
And statistics when it comes to wide receivers, especially wide receivers who don't get that much opportunity, are not that reliable. Like, you can't, that's not an apples to apples comparison.
I think it is. I think Jauan Jennings only had the year that he had last year because he got the extra opportunities.
I don't think DeMarcus Robinson, given those opportunities, would put up the numbers that Jennings did. Jennings is the better wide receiver.
I think he would. And I don't think, even if there is a difference, I don't think it's that severe that we need to pay Jauan Jennings more than the $7.5 million he's making this year.
I don't think we should pay him. I think he is right at what his value is. Jennings is somebody who's better than just a vet fill-in like DeMarcus Robinson is, but he is not better or a true, like, that's a guy that I'm very happy to have as my number one. So he's one of those guys that you're willing to pay him somewhere between 7 and 10 million a year. The Niners have him cheaper because they upped him before he had that year last year, but I'm not willing to pay him more. I mean, I talked about it when they gave him the 2-year contract, that he's not the type of guy you want to pay into his 30s because he's already slow enough that he was a 7th round pick for a reason. The moment he loses even a 10th of a step, he's no longer capable of separating. And last year, a lot of his catches were contested catches. He's just so good at it.
The Big 25 says trade JJ and a pick to Washington for Terry McLaurin, who's the number one wide receiver. I would love if that happened.
If they could afford McLaurin's new contract, I would be all for it, but they can't.
Well, yeah, and that's the other part of it, is that you would have to, it's not just acquiring Terry McLaurin, it's paying him the money, and they don't like paying wide receivers a lot of money. And that's the other part of it too, Levin. If they regret the Brandon Ayuk contract, right, because it was like sort of gun to their head, for lack of a better phrase, you think they're going to, you don't think they'd regret a Jauan Jennings contract where a week before training camp starts, he says, pay me or trade me? Like, of course they would, especially if, as Jason Aponte noted, he returns to his wide receiver 3 or 4 role, which is what we're expecting to happen as the season goes along. You can't pay $7.5 million for wide receiver 4.
I would ideally not. That's why I wouldn't have given him the contract to begin with.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a backbreaker, and I don't think it's something they need to get out of. And yes, you're assuming that he's going to end up wide receiver 3 and 4. What happens to this team, and especially their wide receivers? There's a very good chance. I would say there's as much, if not more of a chance, that at week 9, Jennings is the number 1 wide receiver left on this team than he's number 4.
Well, he better not be. And
you know what I mean? Like, there's just as much opportunity here that Ayuk does not return to form or has a setback or something happens. Pearsall has something happens, and Jennings ends up your number 1 as him ending up your number 4 because DeMarcus Robinson overtakes him, or the rookie ends up being everything that we've been reading and overtakes him to push him down to 4. Like, neither one of those are very likely. He's likely to be the number 3 wide receiver, and he's likely to be a number 3 wide receiver that plays more than most number 3 wide receivers because of his blocking ability.
The other thing you said that I take issue with is you said, and not just you, others have said, that the Niners wide receiver room is crap without Jauan Jennings. I don't think we can say that. It's unproven for sure, but it's not. I don't think assuming that it's bad is incorrect. It's unproven. We don't know. I think Ricky Pearsall is going to be really good.
Again, you're saying something that is not quite what I said. I said if you're going into the season with Ricky Pearsall, DeMarcus Robinson, Jacob Cowing, and an unproven mid to late round pick, then that is a bad wide receiver room.
I don't think
you don't want to go into the season with unproven and just potential, especially when a lot of that potential is mid to late round picks. You're counting on Cowing suddenly emerging after doing nothing as a rookie, and a rookie being the steal of the draft, as well as your first round pick developing. They might be confident that Pearsall is developing and is going to be a starting caliber wide receiver and capable of assuming number 1, but that's still something that they're projecting. It's not known. And the 3 behind him are completely unknown, are bargain veterans that you don't want to be counting on as a starter. So that would be a mistake. You don't want to go into the season saying, boy, we really have to have that guy coming off an ACL come back for real.
Right. It's not an ideal situation, and they're definitely unproven, but it doesn't mean that they're bad. And a lot of people have said, oh, this wide receiver room is a joke, even with Jauan Jennings. We can't say that yet. We don't know for sure. We'll find out pretty quick, I think. And let's be fair. If you look at the totality of the receivers that this regime has drafted, which now we're at 12, I believe, total, putting aside Pearsall, Cowing, and Jordan Watkins, because we don't know about them yet, 6 of the 9 wide receivers that this franchise has drafted in this regime have not been good. Debo's been good. Ayuk's been good. Jennings has been good. Everybody else, bad. Danny Gray, bad. Dante Pettis, bad. Jalen Hurd, injured all the time. Trent Taylor, bad.
I think you have to take Jalen Hurd out of the equation. You could not have predicted the injuries that he had. It's not like he was injury prone in college and it was just more of the same. It's not a Marcus Lattimore where you're taking a massive roll of the dice on a guy with a major injury and it just didn't work out. That's something like, okay, that was a risk you knew at draft time.
It didn't work out, I think is fair to say, whether you want to, for whatever reason.
Even if you include him, hitting on 3 out of 9 wide receivers is a pretty darn good clip.
But if we carry that over, like apply that standard to the guys we don't know about, right? Pearsall, Cowing, and Jordan Watkins. History kind of tells us 2 of those 3 are not going to be good, right? If we go by,
right. But then you're sticking right with the 1 out of 3. 3 out of 9 is 1 out of 3. Yep. If they end up being 4 out of 12 of the wide receivers are drafted, and you're counting 1st through 7th round pick, because a lot of them are later round picks, that is a pretty darn good hit rate.
So then I feel like we each switch sides of the argument.
Yeah, I'm saying like when it comes to wide receivers, they do a decent job. Now, the thing that I would say when it comes to the wide receivers is they do a good job with the 1st round or early round, because Debo is 2nd round picks, and they do a terrible job at the later, because the only one to amount to anything that was drafted later is Jennings. Like all the other late rounds, when it comes to late round ones, they are 1 out of 6, and that's not very good. And that's just 1 out of 6 to contribute decently. I'm not saying 1 out of 6 turned into a starter. That's not the bar I'm setting, even though Jennings turned into a starter for some of his career. I'm saying like the other 5 are like Cowing. They amounted to virtually nothing. I guess Pettis was also an early pick, so you would have to say that you take him out of the equation. They're 3 out of 4 on their early round wide receivers hitting, and they are 1 out of 5 on their late round wide receivers hitting.
Where are you putting Danny Gray? He was a 3rd round pick.
I consider 3rd round pick is where you start really rolling. 1st and 2nd round, especially a wide receiver, you're taking somebody that you expect to be a starter either right away or be a heavy contributor as a rookie and then a starter in year number 2. You get into that 3rd round and you're rolling the dice and you're hoping.
415 on X said, give Bourne a raise and make both sides happy. If they wanted to give him a raise for just this season, totally fine with that. They've got the cap space to do it. That's fine. Do it. I don't care.
I'm fine if they give him an extension that is very team friendly. If they say, here's a 3-year extension so you can get your PR and say you won. But in terms of the actual contract, you're getting paid virtually the same this year, and you're getting paid getting a 2nd year at that pay. He gets another, say, 7.5 up to 10 million next year. I am okay with that because of the unknown of Ayuk.
Yeah,
Ayuk may never be the same. We don't know. And if he's not the same, you need Jennings next year too. But or another free agent.
Well, but that's part of the equation too, right? Like Benali says, Keenan Allen is still out there for a reason, although he's still out there. There are other Amari Cooper is still out there. You have been skeptical that Demarcus Robinson could replace what Jauan Jennings produced for them last season, but could Amari Cooper replace what Jauan Jennings provided, or one of the other free agent guys that are out there?
I would be all for it if they're coming cheaply. Like I'm saying, probably $5 million or less. I'm not signing those guys for more.
That's cheaper than Jauan,
right? But if they come cheaper, I do think that they could replace it, and I would be okay with that. I think those guys are out there because they are veterans who are unwilling to accept that they're not the veteran that they used to be. And so they're wanting money that's not coming. They're the type of guys, I think, at this point, the teams say, well, we'll give you a vet minimum. We'll bring you in, or we'll give you a 1-year, $5 billion deal, and we'll bring you in. And those guys are saying, what are you talking about? I just put up, 1,200 yards 2 years ago. And they're wanting last year to be the anomaly and get paid based on the year prior. And that's just not what they are. Amari Cooper, I was for bringing in last year. He had a really bad season last year. I don't know if he just did not mesh with Jared Allen or what, because Amari Cooper, I will say, he is somebody that is a really good route runner. That's how he gets open, and that means it's timing. He needs timing to be open. And Jared Allen strikes me as somebody that doesn't give a flip about timing because he's such a freak. Or sorry, Josh Allen. He's such a freak. He doesn't have to care about the timing. He's going to get it done whenever it's going to get done, and that plays right against Amari Cooper. But it's also possible that Amari Cooper, it turned midnight and he turned into a pumpkin.
Amari Cooper played for the Browns and the Bills last year. He played 8 games for Buffalo. He had 297 yards and 2 touchdowns in those 8 games. Now, he did average 15 yards a catch, which is nice. Let me just run through some names. You give me a yay or nay. If you could sign them to a cheap deal, would you want them? Amari Cooper.
It's a yay, as I said, pending talking to him, because there have been some very boisterous history with him, and you will be accepting a wide receiver 3 or 4 role, and if you speak up, you'll be gone.
Keenan Allen.
Same thing. Keenan Allen, if he's willing to accept a lesser role and okay not getting paid, bring him in. He's certainly better than most teams' wide receiver 3, probably better than half the wide receiver 2 out there, but it's whether or not they're willing to accept it, because they have been vocal wide receivers complaining about contracts and opportunities in the past.
Gabe Davis.
I'm willing to bring him in. I still like the potential there. I really like him as a wide receiver 3-4. I would much rather have him than DeMarcus Robinson, put it that way.
So we're 3 for 3 so far. DJ Chark.
No.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Tyler.
It's no for his talent and what he is, but also no because I have no interest in having to hear the dang song every game.
Tyler Boyd.
For real cheap, yeah.
Chris Conley, our old friend.
No.
Allen Robinson.
No.
Yeah, that's pretty much the list.
Yeah.
That's all the guys that are. Oh, Nelson Aguilar. No, I don't even want Nelson
Aguilar.
But there are a lot of guys you named that you'd be willing to do.
Yeah. If they are willing to accept a lesser role and basically say, my pitch to Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper and slightly lesser extent Tyler Boyd is, look, we're bringing you in. You're going to be wide receiver 3 right off the bat. You might end up being pushed down to wide receiver 4, but boy, are we an injury-prone team, so you might have real opportunity here with a playoff team.
John Wallace says, man, they should get JJ signed. I'd give him like a 3-year deal somewhere between 10 to 12 million. What about 15 million guaranteed, 16 million guaranteed, or something like that? He's well worth it. No, he's not. People were howling, and they turned on Brandon Ayuk because of the money that Brandon Ayuk got. I'm stunned. Like, we like Jauan Jennings because he blocks. But if you think Brandon Ayuk was overpaid, again, before this year, Jauan Jennings' career high in wide receiving yards in a season was 416. And he's not going to get the amount of targets and catches that he got last year. 16 million a year, 15 million a year for 400 yards. I'm sorry. I don't care if all those come on third down. He is not worth that.
Yeah, it's they talk about there's players coach, because it's a coach that's gets along with the players really well. There is something, in my opinion, called a fans player.
Oh,
and that is a player that fans just adore because of their attitude. Jennings is funny. He likes to play in the interviews, so that makes him a fan favorite. On the field, He's extremely animated and fiery, and he's willing to run through a brick wall for the team. And he will run through that brick wall and break every single bone in his body if it means the team gets a win. He's that type of player with that type of mentality. So that makes him a very big fan favorite. He's everything you could want to watch in a player from a fan perspective. But that you don't pay them based on that.
He plays like we would play if we were good enough to play in the NFL, right? Always hustles, hard to bring down, fights on every play, blocks guys into the Gatorade table, right? I completely understand why 49er fans love Jauan Jennings. I like him too.
Allow me to adjust that slightly. He plays like we like to imagine that we would play.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there when push comes to shove, they would not play that way. The pain is, Jennings goes through more pain than some wide receivers are willing to do for the team. And I think a lot of people out there like to think that they would too until they actually get hit.
Bay Area Oasis fan, trading Jauan would be a huge mistake. You can't replace what he brings, especially in the playoffs. This dude was going to be Super Bowl MVP had the Niners won. Yeah, I'm also not paying Jauan Jennings based on one game, okay? I get Super Bowl was a great game, and it was. I'm not taking anything away from Jauan Jennings. It was a great game. But I'm not paying him $15 million a year because he had a good Super Bowl. He got paid for those years. I'm not paying him in the future for those years.
Let's bring this to a different perspective that we haven't touched on, but I do think it's probably worth mentioning. The locker room effect. You trade Jennings, there is a void created in that locker room. Not just a void, but you likely piss that locker room off. There is something lost there. You change what we have right now, I would say, is good vibes. Unlike last year where I think the team had a lot of doubt. This year, it's all about potential. It's all about taking it one game at a time. We're going to rebuild ourselves. We're here, we're confident, but we're going to take it one game at a time. You trade Jennings, I think you lose some of that buy-in, especially from the veterans that are saying, hey, we stuck around. We believe in these young guys, but now you're trading a guy that we needed to actually have a chance here. That, I think that would change things, especially from the veterans' perspective. The guys that have been around that are trying to get back to the Super Bowl, they would have that, allow that kind of doubt to creep back in.
It would be a blow for sure, because I agree, Jauan Jennings is a tone setter, and he's certainly well liked. How could you not like Jauan Jennings? I agree that at first it would be like, damn, really? But also, players understand the business aspect of it, right? They understand, hey, if the team didn't want to pay him or couldn't pay him, whatever, they're giving him an opportunity to get paid somewhere else. And I think it all comes down to winning, right? As long as they started winning games, if they start to season 4-2, no one's going to be complaining if Jauan Jennings isn't there. That feeling, while initially you would take that shot to the gut, because I do feel like that's what it would feel like. If they start winning games, man, you move on. The league keeps going without any player. So I think they'd get over it, essentially.
That's assuming they win, which they should,
yes,
especially considering schedule. But it also has the reverse effect. If you come out of the gate and you lose your first game, it starts to snowball. If you lose your second game, it's season over, because now you've destroyed that whole locker room, because they're going, we're 0-2, and it's because you traded that guy. You betrayed us.
Nah, I don't think that everyone would be like, well, Jauan Jennings is the reason we're 0-2.
I think if you lose those games, I think you would have players going, it's not my fault. Whose fault is it? Oh, the front office didn't have our back.
If Ricky Pearsall is dropping game-winning touchdowns, then I think that would, put more of a focus on it. But I don't think that, I don't know. I don't think Jauan Jennings is that important one way or the other in the grand scheme. Do you think he's making or breaking the success of the 49ers this year? I think it comes down to Jauan Jennings. If it does, I think we got problems.
I think it does if Ayuk is not the same.
Benali says, how serious would you consider the 49ers' ability to contend if their number one wide receiver for a majority of the year is second-year Ricky Pearsall, who missed all of minicamp? I think look, you drafted Ricky Pearsall to be that, right? That is why you take Ricky Pearsall in round 1. I would consider it just as, I don't think it changes anything. If Jennings is the number one wide receiver to start the year, or Pearsall, I don't think the 49ers Super Bowl chances are affected at all.
I mean, for those on YouTube, they saw my reaction. It's a shoulder shrug. And I do that because I don't know. Is Ricky Pearsall improving? Is he really going to emerge as the number one? There's the potential that we come into this year and Ricky Pearsall is like, holy crap, that guy's great. There's also the potential that that guy comes in and he didn't develop at all, and you go, well, that guy is, somebody that will contribute, but he's like a number 3 wide receiver, and he never gets past that. Like last year, what I saw from him is, yeah, that's a guy who can contribute and should be on the field a good bit, but there's rough edges. If he improves, then he's a starting caliber wide receiver. If he doesn't improve, then he's never going to be more than a number 3 type of guy. Your guess is as good as mine. I'm not going to know that until regular season starts. I don't care what the camp reports are and what if you see him in preseason and all that. It doesn't matter till the real games start.
Completely agree. I just want to point out you just put the floor for Ricky Pearsall at Jauan Jennings.
Well, yeah, one's a 7th round pick and one's a 1st round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And one is a 7th round pick because his athletic ability, his speed specifically. I mean, I think he is quite athletic. I mean, he wins all the jump balls, but in terms of his speed is you're never going to be more than a number 2. Like Jennings, if he did everything, if he became the best route runner in NFL history, he would still be a number 2 because his speed is so terrible in the NFL these days that it will always limit him.
I think he ran like a 4.7, something like that.
Yeah, it was 4.7 something, which I know what some of the Niner fans out there listening are thinking. Well, that's what Jerry Rice ran. Yeah, in the 80s, the NFL is even faster now.
Yeah,
so
but
him running a 4.7 now is like Jerry Rice running like a 4.95.
But also, nobody watching Jerry Rice and Jauan Jennings is like, yeah, they're the same speed.
I know, but Jerry Rice ran a 4.7, if I remember correctly. It might have been 4.6, but it's in the 80s. The NFL has gotten faster and faster. I would argue in the last 20 years, especially, the NFL has said, screw skill, we're going athleticism and seeing who pans out. They kind of went the NBA route. The NBA style, seniors are rarely drafted highly. You don't draft because of their skill, their ability to shoot. You draft because, well, that guy's 6'10" and he can jump out of the building. We hope we can teach him how to shoot.
And the 49ers have done their share of that at times, and doesn't always. Sometimes it does work out. Like sometimes it doesn't, though. Sometimes you get Drake Jackson, who remember all the videos of him like doing backflips and stuff, and you're like, oh my god, this guy's a friggin' monster. And then they get on the field and they can't put it together. So yeah, I get that Pearsall is unproven. I get all of that. I'm not like, I saw an article. It was like 49ers bracing for Jauan Jennings holdout. And I'm like, bracing for Jauan Jennings holdout? Like, no, we're not. They don't care. Like, I don't think the 49ers are going to be so terrified by this move by Jauan Jennings that they're going to just pay him. And I don't think this is new, by the way. I'm sure the 49ers have known that Jauan Jennings wants more money for quite some time. I'm sure they've been talking about it, and things probably haven't progressed the way he wants them to progress. But I don't think they sprung this. I don't think Drew Rosenhaus sprung this on the 49ers 2 days ago.
No, I would assume Jennings knew right away and said something right away, and the team said, well, we got to take care of these guys over here first. And that was Warner, that was Kittle, that was Purdy. And now that they've done things, Jennings been waiting and hasn't received anything. And he's going, well, hold on. They told me to wait for those guys. Those guys have been done for a month plus now, and I haven't heard anything. And it comes to find out, yeah, they're not paying you.
And I totally get the 49ers being like, no, we just took care of you last season to satisfy this, right? Like, we recognize we needed to take care of you, and we did that. So I totally get why the Niners are like, we're not doing it again. We just did it.
And I think it's worth saying from both aspects, team's aspect and Jennings' aspect. Greenlaw signed was kind of like a similar situation. He did an extension, secured his future in terms of he's going to make enough to kind of be set for life. And then he had a breakout season to where he could have made a lot more money. And right when he was finishing that contract, what happened? He got a major injury and he was not the same. And it cost him big time in free agency. So from a team perspective, they're looking at it and saying Greenlaw didn't hold out. He finished out his contract. He did the honorable thing. And Jennings is looking at it and saying, yeah, but he got hurt and it cost him, and I'm going to learn a lesson from that and try to get my money now.
I said this before, but I'll say it again. I have no issue with Jauan asking for more money. No issue at all. I totally get it. Completely understand, especially a guy that's never been a free agent, 7th round pick. Like, dude, if you can get it, get it. Like, I have no issue with that. And I want to see him get paid because he's earned it. I just don't want to see the 49ers be the one that gives it to him. That's the thing. Let me ask you this. Let's say Jauan Jennings does get traded. Do the 49ers get more for Jauan Jennings than they got for Deebo Samuel, which is a 5th round pick?
No.
I don't think so either. I've seen a lot of proposed deals out there, like 3rd round pick, 4th round pick. If you get more for Jauan Jennings than you got for Deebo Samuel, wouldn't that be amazing? What does that say about how far Deebo Samuel has fallen?
It would say that Deebo Samuel has looked like crap except for in 1 year, basically, and he has yet been outspoken and, I mean, he from a fan perspective, he's my least favorite player on Twitter in team history because he wants to do this. I can't stand being two-faced. Be truthful. He wants to put crap out, and then after he gets his reaction and attention, go, that's not what I meant. You guys are stupid. No, don't blame us for you being an asshole. Like, I can't, that, it pisses me off. Like, that is something that boils my blood instantly. If you want your attention, fine. I'm okay with players using social media to get their attention and try to get things done for their contract and their career. I got no problem with it. Like I said, I have no problem with Jennings going public with a trade demand. I would not have had a problem with Deebo going public with a trade demand like he did. I have a problem with him kind of using the fans to get his attention and then blaming the fans for being stupid on the backside of it. Now, if you want to do that, you can piss off, and that's why I wanted him off the team the last 3 years, because I feel like he was taking fans for granted and using them in a very deliberate but dishonest way.
You can't tweet something that says, look at me, and then get mad and say, well, why are you looking at me?
Yeah.
Like, no, you know what you did. Let's be honest.
I mean, it was even worse than that. It was, he would post something that was very cryptic, very vague, knowing what everybody's looking for and that they're negotiating and all these things, and that he's made a trade demand. And then after people react thinking it's about the Niners, he would come back and say, you're stupid. That had nothing to do with football. Like, yes, it did. Shut up.
I agree with you on that. We've said what we think should happen. We've said what we hope will happen. What do you think will actually happen? How does this situation get resolved? And when does it get resolved, Levin?
What will happen is nothing, which means it never gets resolved. It gets resolved because the regular season starts and it's clear nothing's happening.
You don't think they're going to pay him at all? You don't think they're going to adjust his deal at all?
I think there's a small chance. I think there is a 0% chance he is traded. I think there is a chance that he gets a new contract. I would put it like maybe 25%. That he gets a new contract that bumps him up to, like, say, 10 million this year and gives him next year around the same, but the team has an out after that. Like, I could see them doing something like that because that's kind of this team's MO of saying, hey, we'll throw you a bone and it's not backbreaking. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Juice situation. It's like they can't rip the Band-Aid off of a marginal player at this point, a player that's nice to have but not a need. That's what Jennings is. I would say this year is maybe a need just because of the unknown of Ayuk. That's what I've been arguing, is Ayuk changes this. If Ayuk was healthy, I would say, yeah, you can trade Jennings. If that's what you truly feel like you have to do, go ahead and trade him. It's the unknown of Ayuk that changes my opinion on it. But I would put him in that boat. But I think ultimately what's going to happen is he gets nothing. Like, the team is probably going to offer him a contract, but it's going to be yeah, you can make 7.5 million this year, nothing changes, and you can make 7.5 million next year. And he says no.
What I think I would do if I were the 49ers is I would try and say, hey, Jauan, we'll give you $1 million more this year, maybe $2 million more this year. We'll change your contract. We'll put some incentives in there. If you go over 1,000 yards, we'll give you another $1 million, right? You get 10 touchdowns, we'll give you another $1 million. So you give him potential and incentive to ball out this year. I don't do anything beyond this year. And what I say to him is, look, we just took care of you. You play this year. We given you a raise, number one. If you produce like you did last year, or maybe, slightly better, you're going to get more money this year, and you're going to hit the open market, and you're going to make a bag on the open market. So we've done right by you this year, Jauan Jennings. I don't think the 49ers need to add any years to his contract. I would not do that if I were the 49ers. Let him play out, let him get to unrestricted free agency, and he can see what's out there, and he can get whatever the market says his contract should be. That, I think, is what I would do. And if he doesn't want to do that, then I do nothing. Then I say, sorry, like this is the best you're going to get. This is what we're going to do. You're under contract. If you don't like it, you can do what you think is best for you, but we've got to do what's best for us. And we've laid it out on the table. That's what I would do. Is that unreasonable?
Unreasonable? No. If I'm the team, I'm not doing that.
Why not?
Because you don't have to.
Yeah, I know. But like you were talking about the locker room thing, right?
I would argue that you could say a similar thing. Like, you lay out this year. If you ball out, guess what? You'll go get 15, 20 million a year in the open market. Good for you. If you don't ball out this year, then you were overpaid at $7.5 million. So I would not do anything. And I would have a sit down with him and say, this is the situation. You are on this team. We value you. We do need you, especially early in the season. But with having a highly paid towards the top of the market wide receiver and a first-round pick already, we cannot afford to extend you. We cannot add years to your deal. So we're not going to do anything. I understand why you're wanting to add incentives to him, but I wouldn't even do that. Like that, it's the situation is that we need you this year. We don't need you after this year.
You're even meaner than me. I was trying to be nice. You gave him nothing.
There's no nice when it comes to being when you're trying to win, you got to do what's best for the team. There are small things that you can do, but I just don't. Why are you? Hey, you have a 1-year deal at $7.5 million. We'll give you a 1-year deal that gives you more money. There's no benefit to the team in doing that.
I agree. Let me ask you this question, because this is something that I brought up that Steph Sanchez in particular took issue with, and I don't think is crazy. I said the 49ers' biggest contractual priority right now should not be Jauan Jennings. It should be Alfred Collins, the second-round pick at defensive tackle who does not have a contract like 30 of the 32 second-rounders, who has not participated in a single practice since becoming a San Francisco 49er. To me, it is far more important for the 49ers to get Alfred Collins under contract than it is to work out anything with Jauan Jennings, who's already under contract.
Yeah. I mean, they got to get their rookies signed. I get why you're using the rookie because he hasn't been signed. If you want to talk veterans, like I said, there's nobody I would be negotiating with right now, other than the rookie. You got to get your rookie signed, but there's nobody out there that needs an extension right now.
They desperately need Alfred Collins. The middle of that defense. Yeah. You want to talk about a situation at wide receiver that's a little scary. Go look at the interior of the defensive line. Even with CJ West and Alfred Collins, it's incredibly scary. Without them, it's even worse. It's a nightmare.
Speaking of nightmares, you reminded me of something I wanted to say that I thought of this week that scared me when I thought of it. I was like, and I thought of this because I started thinking it's time of year where I'm starting to think fantasy football. And I was thinking, would I draft Ayuk if he's sitting there kind of later than he should be? And that made me think it through. And I was like, no, I wouldn't. And the reason why, and what scared me is it's not that he missed this offseason because of injury. He's missed 2 off seasons in a row. He's had no off-season work 2 years in a row because he was holding out last year. He didn't do off-season workouts. Players that have missed off seasons 2 years in a row, especially one that at the position of quarterback or wide receiver, where you've got to have the timing together and the rapport together, don't end well. Like I don't have high hopes for Ayuk this year. Thinking about that, like it's not just him coming back from ACL that is a hurdle he has to get over. It's the fact that he hasn't had time to get his timing down with Purdy in particular in 2 years.
It's not an unrealistic concern. Even though he's a veteran guy, all that stuff matters, especially in this offense, especially with Brock Purdy. You know, the timing and you can't throw with anticipation if you don't know where the guy's going to be. If you can't anticipate where the guy's going to be and when he's going to be there. And all of that, you know, they have some chemistry built up, obviously, but you got to keep at it every year. There's a reason Peyton Manning threw 1,000 balls to Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne in practice. Like, you have to maintain that all the time. It's a definite concern. The wide receiver questions and camp battles and everything. Wide receiver is one of the, probably to my mind, the most interesting position to watch in training camp and in the preseason for the 49ers for all of these things and more.
Yeah, it's wide receiver. It's middle linebacker who emerges as the number 2.
Mm-hmm.
It is who the heck are going to be the starting safeties.
Yep.
And watching Michael Williams. That's really, it's not so much that there's a battle at defensive end. It's just watching the top rookie.
Did you see what Kittle said about Michael Williams? Apparently in minicamp at one point, Michael Williams is like, man, it's disrespectful when they put tight ends on to block me. And George Kittle was like, oh, you're going to find out real quick, Rook. First of all, he's going to have to face Kittle in practice every day. But also like, dude, this is the NFL. You're going to have tight ends blocking you all the time.
Yeah. Well, that and tight ends at the NFL level are better blockers than almost anybody he's faced in college.
Right. Then a lot of tag. Yeah, of course, because there's the level of competition. But, you know, that's going to be great, right? Like, I can only imagine that Michael Williams going up against George Kittle is going to make both of those guys better, particularly Michael Williams. Like,
yeah, dude, I was going to say, not so much Kittle. I mean, Kittle is what he is at this point. I don't think you can get more developed at blocking.
Imagine if you're Michael Williams and like you're trying to rush the passer, and let's just say George Kittle like stonewalls you, and you're like, this guy's a tight end. It's not even an offensive lineman. If this guy's a tight end, then I can't get past him. Like, talk about a demoralizing welcome to the NFL type moment.
Yeah, I think the welcome to NFL moment when it comes to tight ends and defensive ends is when that tight end surprises you with a chip block and knocks you on your ass.
I'm sure that'll happen too. And you know, George will George will be like, oh, this is going to be good. Take a little pride in that.
Yeah, they might line up Kittle with Trent Williams and say, all right, you get both of us. Let's see what you can do.
Alex Conklin says, comparing Bourne to Jennings is so ignorant.
Yeah, they are pretty similar.
They're pretty similar, dude. Like, what is the difference between them? I really want, like, 49ers fans have this attachment to guys that we like these kind of like lesser talented guys, right? I remember hearing people wringing their hands when Jeff Wilson got traded to the Dolphins, right? Oh my God, Jeff Wilson. Nobody's thought about Jeff Wilson. Have they missed Jeff Wilson at all? No. Have they missed Kendrick Bourne at all? No. Will they miss Jordan Mason at all this season? No. No. You have to recognize the got to haves versus the nice to haves, right? Jauan Jennings is not a got to have. He's a nice to have for the 49ers, just like Jordan Mason, just like Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, and they have him, which is why I'm not trading him, but I'm also, he's nice to have, not a need to have, so I'm not giving you more.
Right. Okay, I think we've covered the Jauan Jennings ground. One more thing I wanted to get into on today's show. I emailed you about this. I just thought it would be a fun little thing. Niners Wire had a little blurb about some contract incentives this year for certain Niners. So I thought it might be fun to take a look at some of those and predict whether or not the 49ers and their players are going to achieve some of those contract incentives. And one of the most interesting belongs to Bryce Huff. $500,000, Bryce Huff, if he gets 12 sacks this year, $1 million for 14. So those last 2 sacks are worth as much as the first 12. $1.5 million for 16 sacks, $2 million for 18 sacks. And this is a bad job by whoever his agent is. $500,000 for a Pro Bowl and $500,000 for All Pro. It is so much harder to be an All Pro than a Pro Bowler. You should have gotten a much bigger bonus for being an All Pro.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I think the way you explain that is slightly off. He gets 500,000 when he hits 12. If he gets to 14, he gets an additional $1 million. So it's worth twice as much, those last 2. Not just as much, but he's not getting any of these, so I don't care.
What? You don't think he could get 12 sacks this year?
Not with the first round pick and Nick Bosa on the team, no.
Oh, I completely disagree because I think they're going to, on passing downs, they're going to move Mykel Williams to the inside. So you're going to have Bosa, Mykel Williams.
And you think he can get 12 sacks just on third down? No.
Yes. Oh, 100% I do.
Is it a 0% chance? No, but it's not happening.
Why not?
12 sacks for a third down specialist is not something that happens.
D Ford played 11 games and got 6.5 sacks, and he was a third down specialist.
Yeah, he was a third down specialist that was a freak. Bryce Huff is not the same person.
I think Bryce Huff in situations, now he's not a three down player, but I think he absolutely can get 12. He better get 12 sacks. They need him to get 12 sacks.
He's not getting 12 sacks. What are you smoking? Like, I'm shocked that you think you're sitting here thinking like 12 sacks is something he should be getting. No. 12 sacks from your third pass rusher? No.
There's no reason he can't do it. He's not going to get double teamed.
Nobody on this team last year got to 12. Nobody.
He is 10, other than Nick Bosa, he's 10 times the pass rusher of anybody else they had on the team last year.
And how many did he get last year?
I don't know. I know he didn't play that much with the Eagles, and he got hurt, so that was a factor. He got 2.5 last year.
And you think
he also got 10. He got 10 the year before that when he was
10,
with Robert.
Not 12. He got 10 in an ideal situation, not coming off a bad, like when he's still ascending, not he descended, and now you're hoping he can get back to something. 10.
Oh,
now you realize I'm right. Now you're backpedaling and you're going, wait, hold on. In his best year, he got 10.
No. I don't think he can get to 16. I think that is too much. But I absolutely think he could get to 12. In fact, perhaps we need to have a little wager. Perhaps we need to make.
I will gladly make this wager because I think it's like a 99.9% chance I win this wager.
I do want to put one caveat on it.
Oh, okay.
He's got to play. He's got to play at least 16 games.
Yeah, if he gets hurt and can't play, then it's off. I hate making bets based on statistics, and then a guy gets hurt, and it's like, yeah, but he was on pace for it. So yeah, I'm fine. I think that should always be part of the equation when you're making a friendly wager with somebody, that if the guy gets hurt, bets off.
Chat, what do you think? Do you think 12 sacks for Bryce Huff is too high of an expectation for me? Or do you think he could get 12 sacks given the fact that he's now with Robert Saleh in the wide 9 again, has Nick Bosa on the team, hopefully has someone that will help in Mykel Williams rushing from the interior? What do you I'm surprised. I thought we were going to agree on that one. All right. See, this is good. I'm glad we did this.
Are you keeping facial hair throughout the season?
We'll have to see. That's called a tease.
Oh, come on now. I was going to say, if you're keeping the facial hair permanently, if you lose that bet, you got to like shave half of it for one show.
That's not bad. I'm not going to lie. Jake Brendel has contract incentives. I don't really care. He gets $500,000. Wait, I'm assuming this is supposed to be $500,000 because they have the comma in the wrong place. And I don't think Jake Brendel has a $5 million incentive in his contract for making the Pro Bowl.
This is one of the few that I think in this segment that we're doing that will actually happen. Brendel is probably going to play 60, 75%. 90 is possible. The thing is, I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, at what point would he not? Well, if he misses, let's say one game, he's hurt. Just one game. Well, that's 1 out of 17 gone. So you're looking at about, at that point, if he plays every other snap of the entire season, he gets like 93%. Well, there's a decent chance that some of these games are blowouts one way or the other, and he gets pulled to save him, or he gets dinged up and he misses, a series or two and then comes back in. So I think the 90% is very much, that would be a coin flip, I would say. But 60 and 75% he's likely to hit because who else is playing center?
That's the thing. I mean, if he's healthy, he's going to play. They're not benching him. God knows they're not benching him. If he was going to get benched, he would have got benched last year. And instead, Shanahan and Forrester said it's the best of any 49er center that they've had. So he's going to play if he's healthy. He will be out there on the field.
Unfortunately.
Let's look at Luke Farrell, the big free agent signing this offseason. This is crazy to me. This is just like a gift. If Luke Farrell plays 40% of the time and the Niners make the playoffs, he gets $250,000. Imagine an incentive, and imagine if your job said to you, Levin, if you don't show up 60% of the time, the majority of the time, if you're not there, you could get $250,000. That is a great incentive for Luke Farrell. That is like a gift because he's making that.
For one, I don't think he will. He's a backup tight end. I don't think he'll get 40% playing time. Two, that kind of actually is how my job works. I work half the time, just by schedule. I work half the time, and then I have vacation, which ends up lowering that to close to 40%. So
I think they want Luke Farrell on the field all the time. I think that's why they signed him. I think they want to go 2 tight ends on the field as much as possible because they want to have Kittle, especially early in the year, with all the uncertainty that we've talked about. They want Kittle out running routes. And for whatever reason, they think the only way to do that is to have Luke Farrell out on the field. So I think he's going to get a ton of run.
I'll say this. With Kittle's injury history, I would say 40% might happen. It's not something I would not be willing to bet the under. I don't think he'll hit 40%, but I think that there is a decent chance that Kittle misses 2 or 3 games. Well, guess what? Luke Farrell suddenly gets an additional 10-15% on the season because of that. Yeah. So I think it is possible he hits 40, maybe even 50%. I do not think we're going to see a ton of 2 tight end sets. I think we'll see more than we have. I do not think it's going to be a Harbaugh era where that's our normal formation.
We'll have to see. By the way, Kittle played 15 last year, 16 the year before, and 15 the year before that. Although I think in 2023, he was healthy enough to play, but they had clinched everything. So I think he sat out one of the games. But you're right. Luke Farrell having to start and play a whole game changes those numbers drastically. So it will probably.
I could see him hitting 40. I could see him hitting 50 if Kittle misses multiple games. 75% is not happening, and none of those receiving ones are happening. He's not getting 25 receptions.
I don't think he is either. This one's interesting. Mac Jones, backup quarterback, gets $550,000 if he plays half the snaps and the 49ers make the playoffs. He gets $100,000 for 4 regular season wins and 25% playing time.
So this was one that it depends on what they mean by this because it's not explained well enough, which I don't really fault Niners Wire because they're grabbing this from one of the contract sites and they probably don't explain it well enough there. Is it 100,000 for 4 regular season wins that he then plays 25% in or more in those wins? Or is it just the team has to achieve 4 regular season wins and he has 25% playing time on the season? Or is it they have to have 4 regular season wins with him playing a majority of the game, and on the season he has to have overall 25%? There's a lot of different ways that one can be interpreted.
I think it's the last one. I think it's you've got to win 4 games as the starter and play 25% of the overall snaps in the season.
Yeah, which if you win 4 games as the starter, is essentially 25%. I mean, there's 17 games now, so it wouldn't be quite 25%, but it would be essentially 25%. That's how I would interpret it. They got to have 4 regular season wins with him as a starter, or I would say 4 regular season wins with him playing a majority of snaps. Because, there's a game like, say, Brock Purdy goes down in the first quarter and he plays 90% of the game and gets a win. That would count, even though he's not the starter.
Yes. Let me ask you this. If Mac Jones gets 50% of the playing time, can the 49ers make the playoffs?
I would say yes, just because the schedule is so insanely weak. If it was an average schedule, no way. I don't think he's as good as Brock Purdy, but I also don't think he's necessarily a backup in this league. Do I think Mac Jones is a top 32 quarterback in this league? I think he's in the right situation, yes, and I think the Niners are a right situation. I view Mac Jones as somebody that could probably come in and end up doing similar to like Jimmy Garoppolo at the end. Not Jimmy Garoppolo pre-injury, not necessarily Jimmy Garoppolo in his career year of 2019, but maybe the Jimmy Garoppolo towards the end where there's some plays there, but there's also mistakes where you're like, how did you miss that?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. Which 50% of the schedule? Like, here's the thing about the Niners schedule. They're at home a lot in the back end of it. I mean, 3 of their first 5 games are on the road. No, wait a minute. 4 of their first 6 games are on the road. So the back half of their schedule, there's a lot of home games. I do think that matters, especially when you're talking about a backup quarterback. If Mac Jones got to play the back half of the schedule, I think he'd probably end up moderately. I think the Niners could still make the playoffs, quite honestly.
I mean, with how easy this schedule is, let's just spell it out there. The Niners, let's say Brock Purdy gets injured in the middle. So he plays the first 8 games and the team goes 6-2 in those games. Mm-hmm. That is very likely scenario because of how easy the schedule is. Brock Purdy then gets injured early in the 9th game. That gives Mac Jones a majority of the season. That gives him more than 50% because there's 8+ games left, and then they end up going in those 9 games, the 8 that Jones starts and the 1 that Purdy started but got injured early. Mac Jones leads them to 4-5. That is a 10-7 record. They are likely in the playoffs despite being under 500 with Mac Jones playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a big part of that is what sort of runway does Purdy give them before he got hurt in this scenario? That's right, because obviously the better Purdy does, the easier things are on Mac Jones. That would be tough. I mean, Mac Jones, that 9th game is the Giants game. The Giants defense, I think the Giants are going to have a sneaky good defense this year with Abdul Carter and Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns still there. Also, like, the Giants offense, I think, is yuck and poo, but their defense, I think, is going to be very, very good.
Yuck and poo. I don't think I've heard those two go together.
Well, there you go.
I like it, though.
Good. Okay. That sounded dangerously like a compliment coming out of your mouth. I think that's a good place.
I mean, yuck and puke would be kind of funnier, but.
Benali says week 9 would be at MetLife. Like, also, could we not have any serious injuries at MetLife?
Yeah. Knocking on wood, but yeah, Purdy gets his knee blown out on
no
turf. You know what I mean? And that's how we get to this scenario that we're theorizing, where Jones gets, just over 50% of the snaps and is under 500 as a quarterback. Yet the Niners make the playoffs.
Justin says the scariest part of the whole schedule is MetLife. If Nick Bosa said I'm not playing on that field, I'd be totally fine with it. Yeah. No problem, Nick.
I think that's what needs to happen. And I don't want to see the NFL go this way, but if players in one season took a stand kind of in a NBA way where they said, oh, this is a rest game. This is a rest game. And they start not playing all the games, but all the ones they choose are the turf fields. And they say behind the scenes, like, we're not playing on those fields. And your stars start sitting out those games, then they change it. Because here's the messed up part of this. And I think you've mentioned it in the past, but I'm not 100% sure. A lot of these NFL stadiums are going to be serving as stadiums for the FIFA World Cup in 2026. Guess what FIFA's requirement is? And these NFL teams were very quick to jump in and say, okay, we'll do it. They can't have a turf field. There are stadiums that have turf fields that are currently growing grass fields next door specifically for the World Cup requirements, and plan to use those grass fields because the World Cup will not play on the turf that is like the turf that is at MetLife. But those teams plan to then get rid of the grass fields and stick with the turf.
Yep.
For the NFL part.
It's the biggest example of the hypocrisy of NFL owners. You'll host the World Cup games and pay for the grass field for them because that's going to make you money, but you won't do it to protect your own players. Even though I don't know a single NFL player that says they prefer turf over grass. I don't think I've ever seen one NFL player say that. And to get everybody to agree on anything is impossible. And yet the NFL owners are doing this. So I agree with you. It's completely hypocritical. It's infuriating. Thank you, Jed York, for having a grass field and for paying the money to get the field right. You should, not just to be a good decent human being, but also to protect your investment. Even if you only looked at it in terms of, dollars and cents, protecting your investment is worth what it costs to install and maintain a grass field. And yet way too many owners don't do it.
Yeah, it's an example of stuffy old people sitting, counting their money, jumping into their gold vaults of gold coins, and not paying attention to how they got those and how they could get it filled up even more. Like, instead of a 8-foot deep end to jump into your gold coin vault like Scrooge McDuck, you could have a 10-foot if you just took care of your players.
Foot, thank you very much for the super chat. Before we go, Foot says, easy schedule will give the 49ers all they can handle. I'm probably too optimistic on the 49ers this year, to be honest. I'm willing to admit that, but I really think that they're going to, I think they are going to be way closer to the team they were in 2023 than they will be to the team they were in 2024. I don't think what we saw last year is representative of this team. I think they will be much closer to 2023.
I think it's going to be very easy for us to get a bias built up this season because the schedule is going to inflate this record. This could very easily be a team that's sitting there with the first round bye and is not the best team in the NFC in reality, and it's because of the schedule. This team could win 13, 14. I would say the high end, they could win 15 games. They could go 15-2 because the schedule is so crazy easy that if they stay healthy, they could go 15-2 with how easy this schedule is. But in reality, they're like the quality of an 11-win team. This schedule bumps their record up by like 2, 3, maybe even as many as 4 games than what it should be, or 4 wins, I should say.
I think you're right, but let me also ask you this question. In a 1-game do-or-die scenario with anybody in the NFC, do you give the 49ers a puncher's chance?
A puncher's chance? Yeah, of course. Every single NFL team has a puncher's chance in a single 1 game. I don't think that's a very good question. I mean, any given Sunday is literally the title of a Hollywood movie for a reason.
Okay. Would you be stunned if in a 1-game scenario, the 49ers beat any other team in the NFC?
Stunned? No.
No.
Are there teams that I would pick above them? Yes. But I will say that the NFC has been weak, and I think this year it's even weaker. I mean, I said this, I think it was just last week, but it might have been a couple shows ago. You have Philly coming off a Super Bowl high. Are they going to have the same drive? That's always a big question. You have Detroit losing both their coordinators. Mm-hmm. Does Jared Goff regress? And if he does, what does that team look like? What other team is there that's like, ooh, that's the cream of the crop, definitely a bona fide Super Bowl contender that's at the level of the top AFC teams? There isn't one.
That's at the level of the top AFC teams? Yeah, I would agree.
You know what I mean? Like a team that's like, when you talk about best team in the NFL, they'll be in that conversation. I think last year, Detroit was there. Detroit deserved to be in that conversation. This year, there isn't one in the NFC.
People would say the Commanders, because they were in the NFC Championship game last year. And I think people would say the Rams, who were very close to beating the Eagles in the playoffs, didn't get there, obviously, we know. But, I mean, yeah, there are certainly questions with every NFC team. I know some people want to put the Bears up there and be like, oh, look out for the Bears. I got to see it with Caleb Williams. I got to see it with Ben Johnson. The Packers, Jordan Love was banged up last year. Does he look better if he's healthier? Maybe. I'm not convinced Jordan Love is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Minnesota certainly has a talented roster, but we don't know anything about JJ McCarthy. Yeah. We think that Kevin O'Connell will put him in a position to succeed like Sam Darnold, and he probably will. But if you want to sit there and say the Niners wide receivers are unproven, great. Okay, that's fine. But let's apply the same standard to JJ McCarthy. Just because he had a couple of good preseason games last year doesn't mean jack squat.
Yeah, I mean, there are questions with every single NFC team for will they be worse than last year? You know what I mean? There's the question. Obviously, you have the teams that weren't at the top. That the question is, can they get to the top? Mm-hmm. That's the case every year. But I'm talking about the teams that were at the top, continuing at that level. Every single one of them has a question. Whereas you look over at Buffalo, you look over at Baltimore, you look over at Kansas City, they're the same. So The question is, can Kansas City find more talent around Patrick Mahomes? Well, they made some signings this offseason, so you would seem so. You look at Buffalo and Baltimore, the only questions they have is, will they choke in the playoffs again? Which I don't think is necessarily a fair label anyways, because the quarterbacks have done well, especially Josh Allen kind of eliminated those questions this past playoffs.
He's awesome in the playoffs. He's better in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. There is no, like, I am such a Josh Allen fan. I think he's the best quarterback in the league. I think he's better than Patrick Mahomes. He has been in recent years. He is so damn good in the playoffs. Now, he can't beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, but guess what? Other than Jalen Hurts, nobody else can either. Like, there's no shame in not being able to beat Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen is a freaking monster in the playoffs. He has 25 touchdown passes in the playoffs versus 4 interceptions, 25-4. And that doesn't even count any of his rushing touchdowns. Like, he is unbelievable. I will not stand for any Josh Allen slander whatsoever.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson's not quite the same scenario. He has been worse in the playoffs, but I mean, like 2 years ago, he had lost despite putting up like 500 yards of offense and 5 touchdowns or something like that. So it's not necessarily fair to label him as a choke artist, but I get it. But my point is, those teams on paper going into the season are every bit as good, maybe better than last year. In the NFC, every single team that was at the top and in the conversation for winning the NFC is worse than last year, has question marks other than Washington. But I think Washington they punched above their weight last year. Yes, they made the NFC Championship game. I don't think they're quite truly at that level of a team yet. I think they have certain things that they still have to improve on. And I think that while they could end up proving me wrong, maybe they become this monster. I believe with an offseason, people will figure out Jaden Daniels a little bit and be able to limit him. And I think that they will be a playoff team for sure, but they're not going to become this juggernaut of a team.
Kawachipto, and I hope I said that right, says the Commanders are old and won't have the benefit of a last place schedule. Yeah, I think the Commanders have one of the oldest, if not the oldest team in the league. Here's a question really quick. Do the 49ers have the best case of anyone in the NFC to be better in 2025 than they were in 2024? Right? The Eagles are really good. But
define better by wins or by actual talent? And
both.
Because by wins, yeah, they obviously have the best argument because they only won 6 and they have one of the easiest schedules the NFL has ever seen.
But even like the Eagles, what reason is there to think that they will be better, a better team? Not forget the record. I'm just saying a better team this year than they were last year. I would say, if anything, there's a much bigger reason to think that they're going to be worse. Not because they are materially worse, just because they were really good last year. I don't think Saquon Barkley, is going to run for 50-yard touchdowns every single week like he did last year. You know, like, I don't think that is going to happen. And he was the driving force for them last year. They're still going to be really good, but I'm just saying the Lions, certainly not for all the reasons you laid out. The Commanders could maybe be better because Jaden Daniels could take another step, but also, like you said, defenses are going to have more film on him. Maybe the Packers because of Jordan Love's health.
If Jordan Love takes a step forward, then they become, a potential number 1 seed. I will say that division, though, is going to make it very hard for any of those 4 teams to get the number 1 seed. They might be the best team in terms of we look and judge them and say, yeah, they don't have the best record, but they're better. But you got Minnesota, you got Chicago, you got Detroit, and those are the 3 teams that are in the division with the Packers. I think it's hard for any of those 4 teams to end up with the number 1 seed, even though just last year the Lions ended up with the number 1 seed. I think, one, like we said, Jordan Love health brought Packers down. 2, Chicago, obviously, we're all expecting them to be much improved with having Ben Johnson to go with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, not only did the Lions get weaker, but you strengthened potentially a division opponent at the exact same time. Yeah, I think they're going to beat up on each other. Yeah, I mean, when you play that much of your schedule, this just in, having a tough division sucks. But yeah, I think the 49ers have as much argument to be better, not only record-wise, but literally just a better team than anybody in the NFC. Even the Rams, like, you got Devontae Adams. Yeah, he's really good, but I don't know that alone, unless you're going to tell me that their defense makes a massive jump, which maybe it can't because they have a ton of good young players. That could be an argument maybe for the Rams.
You don't believe in the Saints?
No, shut up.
But they got it. They were terrible last year, and they have an argument for being the most unimproved roster. The roster that got even worse the most.
Well, their quarterback situation is a complete disaster because Carr retired, and now it's Tyler.
I would argue that it is the worst quarterback situation we've seen in at least a decade.
Wow, in a decade.
Think about it. Like, none of those guys are potential starters. None of those guys are potential franchise. They don't have a single person on that roster that you look and go, well, that guy, it's not likely, but maybe, oh, there's potential there. None of those guys. It's a complete waste of a season. There's no, well, let's put this guy in and see if he can, shock us all. No, there's not even a guy like that on the roster.
Spencer Rattler's not doing it for you?
No, that's why I made the joke. Like, no. Spencer Rattler gets rattled.
Oh, I see what you did there. No one's ever made that joke before, by the way. You're the first person.
Yeah, the best one of all time, if you want to talk puns on names of quarterbacks. And I don't know if this is something that my friend group made as a joke, because we still we still bring up this in my friend group. So it was like a thing that caught on with us. Or it might have come from like a breakdown of one of his games that Schwami said in his 2 minutes or whatever. But it was Kyle should have been a bowler, because Kyle Bowler was so bad he should have been a bowler instead, because he was like, I think he had like a segment early as a rookie that he was big into bowling or something like that. But yeah, Kyle should have been a bowler.
That's messed up. Your nickname, quote unquote, is an insult. That ain't good.
Yeah. Had you ever heard that? Or is that something my friend, because we've actually talked about this. Like, we don't know if it's something my friend group made up or if it's something we heard somewhere.
I don't know. It would seem to go against the Chris Berman. Like, he usually doesn't put people down with the nicknames.
Sometimes in those 2-minute drills, though, like, he makes a quick thing. And it's just like, and that's what, like, I vaguely remember that, but I don't know if I've invented that in my head, that like he just said that in one of his highlight packages.
I can't remember. I do like those nicknames though. He was the only guy that kind of did that with where he would make it into a pun. I did enjoy that back in the day, but now you're just making me feel old. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you, everybody. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Please leave us a 5-star rating and a review wherever you get your podcast. If you're following along on the audio-only podcast, thank you so much. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Happy to get this season up and running again. Best time of the year to hop on if this is your first time checking us out. Please do. We're live every single weekday, and I promise you won't be disappointed. Levin, what do you got on schedule for the rest of the day?
Probably finishing up